Wario's Woods, released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, is a puzzle game where you assume the role of Toad and must clear each tree of monsters by using bombs. Because this is a puzzle game, you'll need to stack at least 3 bombs and monsters of the same color into lines of the vertical, horizontal, or even diagonal varieties. Once all the monsters are cleared away, you move on to the next round, tree, whatever you want to call it, where the challenge continues anew. Couple twists to the usual falling block puzzle formula is that you're actually controlling Toad in the well, tree, whatever you want to call it, and you're moving things by plucking things below or in front of you and stacking them accordingly. Trouble is, you need to do this in a way that you'll be able to climb out of the hole you'll find yourself in, or else you'll be stuck. Not only that, but you also have a timer on top that when emptied will summon Wario to the mix, where he will bang the tree to bring the ceiling farther down, while more monsters start to fill the well once more. Also, as you progress, more advanced monsters will be introduced where bombing them will not kill them immediately, but rather change them to another color, and it takes a couple tries to clear them off for good. Other monsters require specific means of being killed. Some can only be killed with diagonal lines, and so on and so forth. So clearly Wario's Woods is a somewhat unique beast in terms of the traditional falling block puzzler, as it incorporates a playable protagonist to manipulate things, as opposed to your guiding the falling objects in question. As a result, there is a bit of a learning curve in terms of figuring out how the game plays and controls. It's not always the most intuitive setup. The key thing to note is that Toad can climb up things and pick them up, whether it be one object or a stack. The game does let you choose your controller mapping for your actions, which is picking up one monster, picking up a stack of monsters, as well as kicking objects off to the side towards a wall or off a ledge, which is useful. You can drop a stack underneath your feet if desired, assuming you have the space to do so. There's a lot of things you need to bear in mind as you're playing, and knowing how Toad controls and what he can do is vital to success in Wario's Woods. Sometimes the obvious moves escape you in the chaos, but keep your head on straight and keep in mind all the tricks you could do to get out of a sticky situation, and it's relatively smooth sailing from that point on. The Super Nintendo version has a few modes of play. Couple versus modes, one against the computer and one against the second player. There's also a rounds mode where you play the regular single player game where you clear all the monsters from the well. You play various rounds, and every 5th round is recorded on the stage select screen, as it were. There's a lessons mode to teach you moves, and a time attack mode of sorts. This version is lacking the boss battles that was prevalent in the NES version, which probably makes that version the more complete game, as it were. But on the other hand, the bosses weren't exactly a highlight in that game, so their omission here is not exactly felt. Really, the only thing that the SNES version benefits from gameplay-wise is that you could use the L and R buttons to kick in the appropriate direction, which is a tremendous help because it's a feature I often forget about in the other version whenever I play it. Wario's Woods is a colorful and decent looking game. Jumping from the NES version to the Super version, there's a considerable upgrade to the presentation in terms of the graphics looking more colorful, the cutscenes being more animated and such, but when it comes to the actual playfield where all the action is taking place, it's more or less the same thing. The monsters are simple yet varied, the well is defined and cleared. Sound has also seen a considerable improvement with a set of bouncy, cutesy musical tunes, some of which may have actually been ported over from the NES version, and these are actually quite catchy here, and they nicely complement some so-so sound effects and the occasional voice bite. Not much else to say there, it's all fine I suppose. Wario's Woods was the last official NES game to be released for the system, not counting all the unlicensed and homebrew stuff that would come along afterwards. So that version has some significance, hence why it's the one always getting re-released, while this SNES version of Wario's Woods is almost forgotten about. And granted, there's a couple bits and bobs missing from this version that keep it from being the definitive edition of Wario's Woods, but it's still a fine port of an otherwise serviceable little puzzle game that may or may not be to your particular tastes due to its somewhat unique gameplay. Overall, if you want something a little different from your puzzlers, Wario's Woods might be worth your fancy, regardless of which version you play.